From the waves of Newport to romantic hummingbirds of Avila Beach to the sweet speech paths in Baldwin Park via sweet lights of Hollywood to the hot mamacita of art to the frozen bananas of Santa Ana to the psychedelic sights to the ambient nights to sobriety's surreal heights, we bid you a jubilant hello. This is Slammin Stan episode 53, take 2, because Vandal, the love handle Drummond, ran the podcast last week, which was not, in fact, a podcast, but a conference call because he is totally clueless. He is potentially the most dangerous man in podcasting today. Better yet, the most dangerous man in radio, or Sirius for that matter, because if somebody put him at the controls, he would shut down the entire network internationally. And yes, I am talking about myself, Vandal Drummond, who last week attempted, that's a better way to put it. Attempted to host an episode of Slammin Stan, but failed miserably.
Did you hear the recorded live portion last week?
No, I always forget that part. You know, it's like, I know it's an essential thing, but I figured we had everybody on.
That pretty much should have told you that it wasn't recording.
Yeah, maybe I should have banged on the computer or something like that.
Maybe you should have just said,
sometimes
you know what?
Fixes things.
Maybe I should have told Bix to handle it.
Oh, hey, that's the key.
Or Ryan, actually.
Yeah, Ryan. Oh,
or Dan.
Man.
Or Dan.
So amazing. It's so amazing what's obvious in hindsight. Anybody but Vandal.
Well, I mean, it was pretty easy. I think once you figure it out, you'll see how easy it is. It's not that difficult.
Yeah, you know, I think I'll have to come to your residence and you'll have to give me a tutorial, even though the tutorial will consist of calling up talkshoe, signing into the account, and you pointing, saying, okay, that thing there, push it and it will record. It's much simpler than build it and he will come. It's push it and it will record.
You know, and even when I was telling you how to do it, I was like, man, just click the purple button and then the switchboard pops out. You know, I'm thinking in my head it's really easy, and I'm like, there's no way Kurt's going to mess this up, you know? I was actually excited. I was like, I hope Kurt gets it right. I mean, because this will be great, you know? And all of a sudden, you send me that email. Can you upload the show? And I'm like, no, I can't.
And you know what? I was not drinking. I was not popping any Ambien. I was not sparking the owl. Nothing. I don't know. Maybe I should get good and wasted. You know, my normal state is one of sobriety. But I don't know. Maybe I should try addiction, and maybe my life will start functioning. You know,
at first I thought it was kind of funny. Then I saw the time that you guys lasted on the show, and you guys almost reached 2 hours. And then I realized,
totally.
How did you guys not figure this out?
Because I was manning the controls, and I use that word, manning the controls. The word.
I imagine you guys joked about the possibility of it not being recorded.
We did. As a matter of fact, at the very end, we said we will see you in 2 weeks, or possibly in 1 week if I totally mess this up. Something along those lines.
Yeah,
of course, I can't remember it word for word because we don't have it.
Yeah. Oh, great. One of the greatest shows ever, and we don't know what happened.
Exactly. But even we said toward the end of the show, I was totally missing something without your ever-present silence on the show.
Well, you know, now since we didn't talk about since I didn't get to hear your whole Cauliflower Alley Club trip, why don't you tell me about it?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, man. You know what? We have to have a whole Slammin Stan crew go next year. I forgot how much fun it was. It was a road trip with me and the legendary Ricky Itaki, who is the most awesome road cat. I mean, awesome traveling companion. The drive back and forth goes so swiftly. He's such good company, and the dude has such eclectic taste in music, all the way up there. Let's see, we cranked the new Devo CD.
That's really good, huh?
It's excellent. It's so funny. Ricky said, yeah, it's okay. It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's the first I've heard Devo since my youth, to be honest with you. Yeah, the trip all the way there and the trip back, like I said, we had Devo, we listened to Mungo Jerry, soundtrack of Hair, cranked some Scott Joplin, The Kinks, good old ska nostalgia with the Specials, Julien Clerc, and one of the most awesome, no, not one of the most awesome, the most awesome surf music album of all time, Terry and the Blue Jeans, Takeshi Terauchi. And that was just the road trip. It was really, really enjoyable. Highlight for me was reuniting with Wildman Jack Armstrong. I think it was the first time I'd seen him in about 6 years. And anybody who has not met Wild Jack Armstrong, a.k.a. Lenny Ornstein, a.k.a. Ali Ben Khan, and a handful of other gimmicks he wrestled under, though not as many as me.
I didn't know he ever used his real name.
What's that?
I didn't know he had ever used his real name.
In fact, he mentioned his real name at Cauliflower Alley, but to be honest, I don't know if he actually wrestled under it.
Well, I thought Lenny Ornstein was his real name.
Yes, it is.
Well, you just said Lenny Ornstein.
Yeah, I said it, but yeah, you know what? Okay, I always tell
people refer to it as an alias or a ring name. I just joined it, so I'm guessing you. Oh, okay.
Well, the greatest alias he had was Ali Ben Khan. That he did like a madman from the Sudan gimmick up in Iowa for the Deucex, or Omaha, was it?
A Jewish Sudanese madman.
I know. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? And I remember him telling me he was kayfabing the whole gimmick, and some fans, he said, some very lovely-looking sisters gave him a ride somewhere, and I can't remember what the rhythm and blues song was playing, but some Motown was on the radio, and that's his choice music. So he kayfabed that he could speak English for half of the ride, and then I think it was like a Temptation song came on, and he said he just started singing at the top of his lungs and blew the girls' minds. But anybody who has not met Jack Armstrong, he is the greatest cure for the blues. The dude just makes you feel good being in his presence. One of the nicest people I've met in the biz. Not enough Jack Armstrongs in the business. But it was like, the most interesting thing is the first time I've been to Cauliflower since 2008, and it's amazing how
that was like 3 years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
It's not that long ago. But it felt like there was quite a shift in that.
Well, the only thing it probably felt that way because wrestlers die so quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
It's probably like at least 6 or 7 people were probably not there from the last.
Well, I remember. I'll never forget the. I can't remember if it was 2000. I think it was 2004. The last time that Bobby Heenan and Mike Tenay emceed the banquet. And the reason it was the last time is because there was a lot of old schoolers who would just trash talk the WWE up there on the podium, and talk about how wrestling went downhill from the 80s. And
Bruce Hart.
Bob. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was doing the cough, say a name thing. Bruce Hart.
Okay. Oh, I shouldn't have talked over that. That was awesome. But Bobby Heenan, very understandably was pissed off because the 80s were when he did some of his greatest work, and that's the biggest change in the number of years is a lot of those guys from the 80s are now the old timers, and you have a lot less of the old timers who kind of mourn the direction the business has gone, and even the cats from the 80s who, come up and speak about the business, you don't hear them deriding the current product, even though for some of them it might not be their cup of tea.
They probably don't watch it, that's probably why.
That's a possibility.
There's a lot of stuff that you just can't watch nowadays.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I can't watch. I DVR so many things, and I say, do I want to watch this?
Yeah.
No, so I erase it, and that's why I'm happy.
I get the feeling that there are a lot more guys that still watch than let on. Because the thing that always strikes me was that in Gary Hart's book, at the end, he talked about, are you kidding? Of course I still watch it.
Yeah.
I watch you know, it was my life. I watch, of course I still watch Raw and SmackDown every week, and, I think about how, he thinks about, when he talks about how he would think about all the things he could do with Randy Orton if he was his manager, and blah, blah, blah.
He'd probably turn it off if he saw Pitbull.
Yeah.
Rapping on the show this past week, or whatever he was doing, singing.
Hey, are we actually on the air?
Yeah.
You know what? We're on the air because Fredo's back.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure before I said anything. I know Kurt's the draw on this show, but I just wanted to make sure.
I think we were on the air, but we just weren't recorded.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I totally screwed it up.
That's too bad because I was going to submit that one for the Pulitzer Prize, and I was really upset that we didn't get you.
None of you guys even bothered telling Kurt, did you press the record button?
I didn't think. I didn't think about it, and I think I got. Well, and plus you get the recorded. I get the recorded live thing when I called in anyway. I think.
Yeah.
So I don't think I got, at least on our end. I don't think we got any different message, and it's not like. And we
I think what happens is the trouble is the reason why Kurt shouldn't do the board is because when he starts waxing nostalgically, it's like those old TV shows. All of a sudden you hear heart music in the background, and Kurt's looking up away from everything, and he forgets everything he's doing. That's what happens. It's like, Wild Man Jack Armstrong. I remember it like it was yesterday, and ring, 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 like that. That's
in other words, I was inebriated, man. I was totally inebriated.
It's funny because in case I ever forget, I hope I call in the right show. The first thing I hear is Wild Man Jack Armstrong. I said, "Yep, I'm in the right show."
Of course, it's not going to be Wild Man Jack Armstrong. I'm going to bring up either Martine Caradigian or Dr. Jerry Graham. What can we tell you? The show's free.
The show's still young. That's all I say.
It's young and it's free. It's fucking free.
I keep telling people, if you keep saying to Kurt, hey, you talk about too much old stuff, he's just going to do more of it. He's just going to do it just to irritate you. That's all.
It's
so
like
don't worry about it.
It's like a feline. You're only encouraging me. And
that's right.
I hope I know. It's funny because I was just talking about how, back in the day, a lot of the people at Cauliflower Alley were very bitter about the product today. And I hope I always sound nostalgic, but never pissy. Because, the product today isn't my cup of tea, but you know what? It's working. If it's selling, if people are coming to it, I consider it wrestling. Even though I don't think Vince McMahon would like me to say that. I
think that the reason why a lot of the if you go back to the older days, the guys who were like working in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the reason they have a tendency to be, I don't know if you call it bitter or just irritable with the product, is because they were raised in that whole kayfabe thing and everything, and they saw all of that change. They literally saw the 90% of the business change. And the guys who were, came up in the 80s or whatever, there's been changes, but it's not that different.
That's true. This is the first era, the last 20 years, where publicly you totally can drop kayfabe unless you're working for one of the companies and have to toe a certain line.
Yeah.
Probably the only other company where you could break kayfabe regularly was back in Jack Pfeffer promotions. He probably encouraged them to break kayfabe.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. But I think that just from the ones the guys that I had talked to back then, there's always a couple of things. Usually a couple of the guys, and I don't think this is bitter, this is just being honest, would end their conversations, well, the best of luck to him. I wish I was making that kind of money back when I was working. That's always one of the things there, and that's only natural because, let's face it, those guys, the guys from that time frame, they loved wrestling, but it's not like they didn't grow up with it on TV. And they didn't wax nostalgically for it. It was basically a paycheck for them. So the whole thing was being paid for it and drawing money. That's what it all came down to. And, these guys now can, guys coming up in the 80s, they can see videos and things like that. And I think there's a tendency, I think, for a lot of them, it was like, God, I worked my ass off for 30 years not to break kayfabe, and then one guy goes out one evening and boom, it's all done.
And the funny thing is it was always preached to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
if kayfabe dies, the business will die. And not only did the business not die, it blossomed. It got bigger than ever.
And then it died, but it had nothing to do with kayfabe.
No, it had to do with incompetence. I mean, it had to do with... Oh, it had to do with people getting too crafty with stories. I mean, there's a lot of things. I think everybody's kind of pulling...
I don't think they're too crafty with stories, Kurt. I don't think there's really a story at all. That's the problem.
No, what I mean by too crafty is they are trying too hard to reinvent the wheel. They're trying too hard to, let's shock people next week. Let's shock people this week. Let's do something eye-popping next week. And, it gets so convoluted. And, in TNA's case.
Like bringing up China?
Yeah, bringing up China.
Hey, it's not TNA anymore as of TV next week or the week after Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
I was thinking of watching tonight because I thought maybe they'd have her drink Mountain Dew on the show. I can't tell you why, but would it make as much sense as anything else they do?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the whole. There's again. They always used to say that there's only like 12 or 13 plots in the world, and everybody just has a different take on them. And the thing is that I think, as you were saying, I do think people spend too much time thinking really hard how to reinvent the wheel when basically it's easier to take a template of something that was there before and maybe give a little twist or a little nudge here someplace, because one of the reasons why I was a few minutes late was I was watching this really great French zombie film right before I came out. Yeah, called The Horde, Horde.
Whoa.
From 2009, and it was really enjoyable. And basically, what it was Die Hard with zombies.
Get out.
Yeah, and it's gory and over the top, and it's basically a bunch of cops and a bunch of drug dealers who get stuck on the top floor of an old abandoned tenement, and the zombies are below, and the only way they can get out is to go down the stairwell one floor at a time.
Where'd you see this?
Damn, that sounds too cool.
Where'd you see this?
It's out on DVD, but actually I just watched it on Netflix streaming.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing after.
See, I got you to say Netflix because somebody just asked if it was on Netflix.
Okay.
Yes.
What is it called?
It's called The Horde, Horde.
Okay.
And it's
we're allowed to say Netflix on the show, and we are also allowed to say wrestling on the show.
That's right.
I really enjoy.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fredo.
No, go ahead, Dan.
I said I just really, again, it wasn't reinventing the wheel, but I mean there was stuff there you've seen before, but there was a nice relentless pace. There was again, being French, there was some. There was some real stuff that they would have to put in the like for example, the woman in this film who is a cop in an American film would have to be Megan Fox or something like that. Whereas in this film it was a woman in her 40s, very thin, very flat-chested, and average-looking, but she looked like she should be playing a cop.
Like she totally rocks.
So, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, again, it's not something you're going to sit there and go, oh, my God, that's the greatest film of all time. But you will sit there and go, I really enjoy this. It was a lot of fun. Especially if you like, I like zombie films. I love zombie films.
I love zombies. They're the greatest. I think 90% of them are like crap, but the 10% that are great are art.
But when you find a good one, I mean, when you find a really, really good one, it's something to it's great. Like you find something like Shaun of the Dead, or Rec, REC, which was turned into.
I loved Rec.
Yeah, wasn't that great? And then they turned it into Quarantine, but they changed it enough to not to really make it. They didn't have quite the same impact. And even there's a great werewolf film from several years ago called Dog Soldiers, which was about a group of English soldiers out on maneuvers in the woods and ran into a pack of werewolves, and they had to apply their military stuff to that. So you can find these little films, and I love horror films, always have.
Oh, when you said Dog Soldiers, I was hoping it was about a race of dog people.
Anybody ideas?
You guys are going way off. You guys are going way off the script of last week's show. We're supposed to be staying on script here.
The point we're trying to get to is that wrestling angles should be about emotion. They should not be a Zen riddle.
There we go. We're back on script again.
You guys talked about wrestling last week?
Wait, I got to go off message for a second though, because I wanted to tell Dan though that if he's a big zombie movie fan, that I was watching the show called NSSW that's on the Twit podcast network, and they had Michael Rooker on.
Oh, okay.
To plug part of it was to plug he's doing he's in an expansion pack for the whatever the most recent Call of Duty.
Yes, I've heard about this. Yeah,
it's called Call of the Dead, and it features him, Danny Trejo, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Robert Englund.
Oh God.
As themselves, and George Romero as himself. And the plot is that they're shooting a zombie movie for George Romero. He gets he disappears or something, and then zombies show up, and all the actors have to kill the zombies.
That is cool.
Does Robert Englund get to wear the long fingernails while doing it?
Yeah, also, it's Freddy Krueger, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Machete, and Michael Rooker.
Oh, you got them all there. You got them all. You even have the serial killer.
Yeah, I guess Michael Rooker because he's been on whatchamacallit on.
Well, he was on Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Walking Dead too. Yeah. But no, just to finish up the conversation, the reason I love the zombie films so much is because what they do is oftentimes they're probably of all the horror films the most socially conscious, and that is they're always dealing with stuff the government isn't telling us, big corporations gone awry, all this kind of stuff, and it's usually a lot of fun just for that reason.
Now, have you seen my favorite though? Have you, in terms of this is more general horror than zombie though? Have you seen Sleepaway Camp?
It was been a long time, but I did see Sleepaway Camp.
Okay.
I got
Kurt to watch it like a year or so back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we did. We dedicated a lot of an episode to it. That was.
I totally remember you guys dedicating a whole episode of that movie.
Yeah.
I never heard of it until you guys talked about it.
Flick.
And just it's just great, and it's just this weird confluence of also just bad movie stuff. Because I was sort of disappointed because when there was finally an official sequel from the original director a couple years ago, it wasn't good in really any way, and I was kind of disappointed by that because it shows he's not a genius. He just happens to be really bad.
Yeah,
in a way that works once, but it's just amazing, and the ending is just the gosh darndest thing you'll ever see.
Well,
and the movie, and for people who haven't seen the movie, I won't spoil it.
One last thing I'll throw in before we get off, because I could talk about these forever. I know Kurt would love us if we did that, but has anybody here seen Dead Set?
No.
It's Stephen King called it one of the best zombie movies of all time, and it's not a movie. It was a TV miniseries in England. It's 5 parts.
Oh, is that the reality show one?
Yes, it's 5 parts. It runs about a half hour each, and what it basically dealt with is that it was the English version of Big Brother, and there was an infestation in England of zombies, and the only people who were left that weren't zombies were the people living in the Big Brother house.
Isn't
it's
that
a great film. It's called Dead Set. They ran it on the over Halloween on the IFC, and sometimes they repeat it. And I don't think it's been released here on video yet. But I mean, I've had people who like squeamish about horror films really enjoy that because it was a nice kind of tongue in cheek with a good sense of humor to it. So
now that we have wound that up.
Yes.
Guess what we're going to do? And you guys are going to understand when I tell you the subject, but we're going off subject one more time because before we get too deep into the show, we have to pay a final salute to Jackie Cooper, one of the last of the Little Rascals who passed away at the age of 89. Ooh. And I wanted to wait until,
that's kind of
especially
young.
us. That's actually 150 years in child actor years.
That's right.
I mean, 89, sounds kind of young for somebody from the Little Rascals for some reason.
No. Well, he was doing films in the 1930s when he was a kid, so you think about it,
I was expecting him to be
70
like
years later, 70.
Yeah, I mean, he was he was in the Superman films in the 70s with Christopher Reeve as Perry White.
That's right.
Oh, really?
So I think the thing is, it's like, for example, Mickey Rooney. I always think Mickey Rooney is like 120 years old because he's been around forever.
Plus, he looks
120 years old when he was 50.
Yeah,
Mickey Rooney's still around?
Yeah, he's still alive. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't beat him with a stick. I mean, you can't. He's like the Vampire Diaries. He won't go away, But I think that if he was 89 years old, then probably he was born in the early 20s, which would have made him about 10 in the 30s.
Yeah.
So, that's the whole thing about those guys, is those guys who lasted a long time like that, which was very rare. You feel like they had been around forever. Because, I mean, he was making movies like, the Champ, the original Champ with Wallace Beery, for God's sake.
Oh, my God. What a film. That was like another version of Brian's song where, not a version of Brian's song, but along the same lines, it's one of those films that the most macho guy cannot get through that film without a dry eye. I mean,
yeah, and he was
Jackie Cooper was incredible in that.
Well,
so
he was also
Wallace Beery.
Oh, Wallace Beery is always an amazing actor, but he also, Jackie Cooper also became a director, and he directed a lot of the episodes of MASH in the 1970s.
And he directed The White Shadow for quite a long time.
That's right.
Great TV show. My favorite show of all time, actually.
I love The White Shadow. That is such an underappreciated show. That was an awesome show.
Yeah, Jackie Cooper and Bruce Paltrow, they pretty much created the whole thing. And Jackie Cooper was very instrumental. And wasn't he pretty instrumental in something to do with the way kids were being taught on the set? Wasn't there some sort of
that's Jackie Coogan.
Jackie Coogan,
who played Uncle Fester in the original TV series The Addams Family. Their names are really close. It's really easy. People get confused all the time. But he was a kid who, Jackie Coogan was the little kid in the Charles Chaplin movies. Chaplin movies back in like The Kid and
also played Oliver Twist.
And what happened was his parents robbed him blind, kind of like they did with like the parents of
Gary Coleman.
Gary Coleman did.
Yeah. Oh no, not Todd. Gary Coleman, right?
And they wound up creating a law called Coogan's Law, which is the law that protects child actors and means that you have to set aside a certain amount of money into like receivership to keep to keep them from stealing all their money. Of course, there's always as Bernie Madoff said, there's always a way around that. So.
Well, Cooper. That's interesting about Jackie Cooper is. Like Jackie Coogan, he had a pretty traumatic childhood from just being exploited and, just people messing with him in so many ways. But not only endured it, but he really flourished as an adult. Went through a lot of emotional hell.
Are you referring to the dog story?
Not just the dog story. Not just that story, but he wrote an autobiography in 1981 called Please Don't Shoot My Dog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the most vile story of all of them, but there was just a lot of crap that he took from people and, had a lot of trouble growing up because, like a lot of child actors, you're barely taught to read and write, and you never were taught how to manage a bank account.
Yeah.
So you grow up and you don't know what to do.
Yeah, and what we're saying about the dog story is there's a very famous story about when he was a little kid. They couldn't get him to cry on cue, so the director told him his dog had just died.
Oh.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah,
that's pretty funny.
That reminds me that I had been reading, when I was reading some stuff about Scream a few weeks ago, when people were talking about it, when Scream 4 that one of the stories is, from the famous first scene of the first Scream movie is, to get her crying, that Wes Craven tells Drew Barrymore this awful story about this dog who was abused, all that. And I ended up reading someone who got the story wrong and said something about that he said he had just killed her dog. And I wonder if someone confused it with the other story.
They might have. I can't imagine these days. I can't imagine somebody doing that these days.
Yeah, nowadays you can't get away with that.
Yeah, no, because I know
Totally.
it was actually, what I just said, that it was that he just told her about this story from the news. But I wonder if that actually makes more sense now that someone would confuse it that way as opposed. But
and there were just all sorts of things like he is expected to be like a smiling face in public, and they would write these phony biographies of him and his parents, and just how it was a huge identity crisis. It's actually it's a book that I would bet stands up well to this day. It's probably an easy find in this day and age, a used copy on Amazon or something. But it just brought me back to just being a little kid and watching all the old Little Rascals. And it's funny, I always didn't even think twice about why I liked them so much, but my brother-in-law, Tony, he put it best once where he says, because the Little Rascals are doing all the things in those episodes that you want to do when you're a kid. They decide, hey, let's build a fire truck, and they build a fire truck out of junk from the backyard, and then, terrorize the whole neighborhood with it. And there's something so cathartic about those, and just, they're great comfort food, along with, what was the guy's name? I think the musician was Leroy Shields, who wrote, all that, cute music for each episode.
But as great as the show was, and I was a huge Our Gang fan, it just seemed to sort of slip a bit from when it went from Our Gang to actually the name Little Rascals. And as
actually, wasn't it in reverse?
No. It started as Our Gang.
No, I thought it was the.
No, I believe they're right. It started as Little Rascals. It became Our Gang when it went to television in the 1950s.
Which were the?
I had always thought that it was the opposite. I thought it started as Our Gang and then it went to Little Rascals. But maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I always refer to them as Our Gang most of the time. But it's so easy to do it either way. The thing started. They were silent films in the 1920s. And they ran
if you can get
all the way. They ran, and there's actually a great set that has like 80 of them on there, including some of the silents. But they go all the way until like around the early 40s, mid 40s, and that's when they stopped. And I've actually had the opportunity to meet a couple of the surviving members. Not a lot of them left anymore. There was a very nice lady named Dorothy DeBoba, who played a character named Echo. She was always a little girl then. Remember, she always sit there and say, "Well, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now?" Repeated everything. And actually, one of my college roommates actually was one of the last of the rich kids in the last 3 Our Gang.
No way.
His father was like the rich kid, Bobby Browning. That was the guy's name, and he played in the last couple Our Gangs as the rich kid.
That's in fact, when you talk about Dorothy, one of my favorite episodes is the one where both Jackie Cooper and Cheney are feuding over the love of Miss Crabtree, and Chubby is reciting his poetry.
That's unbelievably funny. Oh.
Yes, and Dorothy is echoing everything he says, but incorrectly. And when he says, like, Miss Crabtree, you make me want to skip and dance. And Dorothy echoes, "Oh, Miss Crabtree, you make me want to rip my pants."
Well, the big tragedy, what the biggest tragedy in the history of the Our Gang is that Petey the dog was murdered.
Oh, one of them, yeah.
Yeah,
there were
the first
5 or 6 of them.
His owner owed money to people, like from gambling or whatever, and they get even with him. They poisoned him.
No,
it's just poisoned the owner.
Because actually, it's weird when you think about it, because there's a couple early on ones they do with the dog catcher, where they are absolutely traumatizing, where they put Petey inside the oven and like seal it shut, and then the kids start crying, and then it opens up and he's alive,
That's actually my favorite episode. That's the one where
it would be for you.
No, it was the cutest one. That's the one where Stymie and Spanky, when they're really little, are going door to door asking for food for their dog. I think that's my all-time fave. But, Ryan, I think I know what you're talking about, Ryan, how the later ones, I think just they slipped and they became a little too, they'd have, like, morals or patriotic messages.
They were a little too polished, and also they were running out of money. They didn't have a lot of money to do them, so like suddenly it just became Spanky, Alfalfa, Darla, Porky, and Stymie,
and Butch,
and
wasn't Robert Blake as Mickey around that?
Well, he came along after Spanky and Alfalfa grew out of it, and there was another guy named Froggy.
I think the ones that I think I saw some of them together. I think
they did. Well, they did like it's kind of like what they do is you're tied into wrestling. So if somebody's listening for the first time, they at least think this show ever so slightly touches on it. But like they would bring the new face in while the old face was leaving.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of thing. But no, those they just started to run out of money after a while, and the shorts themselves. The Three Stooges did shorts into the 1950s, but by the middle of the 50s, short subjects and serials and that kind of stuff were all done with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was something so charming about the early episodes because the kids were just like, like they were unchained and always getting into trouble, and there wasn't always this message of doing the right thing, or where the later episodes they would have a lot of.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, the thing is the only thing about it, and it was the times they were in, and it's kind of hard to judge. I mean, there were some lapse in judgment. The kids painting spots on their face to get out of school for having the measles, and then they painted white ones on Buckley's face because they couldn't see. And the fact that all the black kids were named after breakfast cereal. I mean, there was buckwheat, alfalfa, spiky, all this kind of stuff. Farina,
and what's funny is even the later episodes where they were kind of getting more moralistic and doing almost like the equivalent of a public safety spot. That's when I thought they started doing even more of that stereotyping.
Well, yeah, and also when they started, I mean, the thing was by 1941 to 45, because of World War II, everybody was doing patriotic stuff. I mean, from Bugs Bunny on down. So there was just no way you were going to, as I kept thinking about with Osama bin Laden situation over the weekend, that would have made a hell of a Warner Brothers cartoon. Could you see that with?
Wait a second. Have you ever seen the South Park? I think it was the
South Park, yeah.
Where Cartman is basically Bugs Bunny chasing Bin Laden as Daffy Duck or something. No, he wasn't. Bin Laden wasn't necessarily Daffy Duck, but Cartman was Bugs.
That's what I was thinking. But they could have done like a full. There's a knock on the door, and Bin Laden opens the door, and like all of a sudden 25 guns come in the room, and he like slams the door, and runs up the stairs, and it goes dun 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 dun, and then Bugs is after him, and goes ding 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 down there. And they always used to do dun 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 ding 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 ding. That's my Warner Brothers cartoon commercial. Speaking of Bin Laden, let me throw a wrestling thing out to you. So, show of hands, how many guys on this line think that at some point over the weekend, a character on an independent wrestling show wearing a turban or dressed like a sheik is going to come out and ask for a 10 count for Bin Laden?
I think.
Well, is Johnny Legend?
Well, actually, it's almost worse than that because. I don't know where they taped him, so he might have happened to be nearby. But on Tuesday night they already had
Daivari?
They had Daivari for tryout.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of good laps and good taste, there you go. That's another one right there.
Oh, totally.
But wrestling is just so full of laps and good taste. I mean, we talked about this before. I mean, I remember how, like in 1969 or 1970, after the Sharon Tate murders, there was a manager named Mark Manson who they made it look like he was, like a follower of Charles Manson. I mean,
yes. Mark Manson and the Graduates.
That's right. And I remember the big Pro Wrestling Illustrated or the Wrestler or whatever it was, right above the two girls wrestling in a bikini. There was a big thing that says, "There's a new manager in wrestling. ... and his name is Manson."
And you sounded a little like Vince when you did that just now, too, by the way.
I got a great idea. Let's bring in this Manson guy when he gets out of prison. We can't get him.
Yeah.
Let's get that Sirhan guy then. We'll do that.
Yeah. And now the big thing is no photograph released of Bin Laden's body. Wahahaha.
I love the fact also on Monday night when they were doing the whole Patriot opening, Vince, being the good Republican that he was, showed all Bush clips and none of Obama.
Obama, no way.
Nothing.
I noticed that too.
And no, and also of course that they decided, I don't know if it was just a PG thing or a weird WWE thing, that they didn't say killed, that they said captured and compromised to a permanent end.
That's right, because, that's actually news entertainment. It's not really news reporting. It's news entertainment.
That's right.
I had to stop and think about it for a second, and I was like, wait a minute, I thought they killed him. Well, did they do anything else to him?
Ryan,
somebody posted.
But, I can see why they don't want to release the pictures, because like with Photoshop, within 5 minutes after the picture is out, you're going to find something on YouTube with the picture of Bin Laden's corpse with a dick drawn on his forehead. It's always going to be something like that.
Well, also, I heard that the photo, apparently, his eye is out of his head and you can see part of his brain, so I can only imagine what people...
Well, but that's like the famous Bugsy Siegel shot. There's, that when Bugsy Siegel was killed, he was shot through the eye, and every once in a while you'd be going through a book on the mafia and you turn the page and there's like an 8x10 picture and you go, whoa, I don't need to see that.
They never released like a photo of George Burns' body after he died. No, think about it. I think he's still alive, man. I think he's still alive. He's out
hanging out with Elvis.
Oh, come on, Kurt. Let's not. You could talk about Bin Laden, but don't put down George Burns. Come on.
I'm not putting him down. No.
How dare you mention Burns and Laden in the same voice? How dare you? Hey, Fredo, are the Lakers going to survive?
Speaking of dead.
I don't think they will.
No, it doesn't look good, does it?
They don't look good at all. They haven't played well all season, so I don't think they're going to do it this time.
Yeah. And now, Kurt, if you think really closely, I just brought you around to what you wanted to talk about.
That's right. Dan brought up a really good subject last week, because we were talking about how...
Well,
Fredo
1 out of 20 shows ain't bad.
Oh, Lord.
And I especially want to hear Fredo's opinion on this because, go ahead, Kurt, set it up because everybody listens to the show for you.
What it was we were talking about how Fredo was watching the playoffs, and I think Ryan was saying he's a sports fan. I'm not a sports fan. Dan isn't much of a sport. And Dan just brought up the question, what percentage of folks who are as heavy into wrestling as we are follow sports outside of wrestling, aside from MMA, and even that could be split up because I know some fans are into it, some are not.
Well, the main guys like the smarts, like Brian Alvarez and all those guys, they don't seem very sporty. Like,
well, in fact, Brian actually comes out and says he does not like sports, even though he's.
But then you have Dave, who's a big sports fan. Like, he actually knows a little bit about the sport.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, before Wrestling Observer, sports journalism was his,
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the reason, because he's a sports journalist. He grew up.
Yeah, he did. He wrote about soccer for a living for a little while.
That's probably why he's more.
I think that the most of the people that I've known that really didn't follow sports at all were wrestling fans, but I've also known plenty of wrestling fans who were huge into sports. It's like, I think there's a little bit of correlation, but...
I think I was thinking about this also, Bix, this week, is I think also it might be partially geographical. Because, like, for example, if you're a big wrestling fan in Texas, the odds are you're also following at least college football or professional football.
Yeah.
If you live out like toward, especially where there's college teams, because I was born in Indiana, and college basketball in Indiana is if you've ever seen Hoosiers, is a religion. It's not a sport there. And I think in other places, like Friday Night Lights they talk about, or even if you look at Jim Ross talking about out in Oklahoma, I think if you're in an area where there's like local sports that way. And I would think the same thing because we had mentioned briefly in passing last week, guys that live in the UK, have local soccer football teams they follow. So I think, like, if you take California, who's never really had a a football team, ever, it seems. And you take, like, certain places on the East Coast or whatever, there's a spot where, and you mentioned, like, with Brian Alvarez, if you're looking up toward the Pacific Northwest, there's not
nothing.
a lot up there.
They have, what, you got he's in Seattle, though. So Seattle, you got what, Mariners?
Yeah.
Supersonics.
You don't have the Sonics anymore, so.
Oh, they don't have Sonics? I see, I don't follow basketball.
Are they the Tomahawks now?
No, the Sonics are the Thunder in Oklahoma.
I meant the Tomahawks.
Who?
What?
Which one? Well, we're talking baseball now, all right?
Yeah,
Did they just have Mariners?
I think Kurt just invented his own team, the Tomahawks.
Yeah, I know they came from somewhere.
Where Tim Lincecum is the starting pitcher, right, Kurt?
Well, you know
Tim Lincecum is the reason to watch any kind of a sport. Tim Lincecum's rules.
I swear, this is the only show I'm on live where I swear I've heard it before. I have no idea why. It's like a rerun. I swear. Have I seen the show before? Wait a minute, it's live. How can I have seen the show before?
Because there should be a show about Tim Lincecum, because he's the only reason to watch baseball. Baseball has Tim Lincecum, and he had the guy the other pitcher, the one who looks like Mad Dog Vachon.
Brian Wilson.
I mean, yeah, Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
And their other guy, what's his name? The other guy.
Rainn Wilson?
No,
Barry Zito?
Romo looks like
Wilson.
Yeah, Romo has a beard too.
Al Jardine.
Yeah, I mean, that's what should be representing sports, is those beautiful, glorious, talented nut jobs. I mean, how many baseball players have crew cuts like MMA fighters? I mean, for every Clay Guida, there's somebody who's putting the whole sports world to sleep. And it's great that people like Lincecum and Brian Wilson are up in San Francisco. They represent San Francisco as the most psychedelic spot in the United States. World champions of the world.
Kurt, were you ever at any time, like as a kid growing up, did you do sports at all?
I did Little League, did amateur wrestling 1 year in high school, but to be honest, for the most part, I think in the 70s I followed the Dodgers for a while when Davey Lopes was the king of the base stealers, but never rabidly. How about you guys? I know we talked about it last week, but, that show is up in heaven somewhere. So, I'd like each of us to go over the way we did last week, kind of our own personal standpoints, or stances, rather. Well, and Ryan, I like what Ryan said last week about what drew everybody in, no matter what the sport was.
Well, growing up with three older brothers, we've loved baseball, we loved basketball. We grew up playing basketball and baseball in our backyard. We have this massive yard, and we watched a ton of sports. But when it came time when wrestling came on, all the sports playing and all the sports watching at that point stopped for the hour, and we all watched wrestling. And then we would resume our sports playing or sports watching after wrestling ended. So, wrestling did take precedent over, the sports playing or the sports watching at our house anyways.
That is so cool. I mean, I always gravitated to the TV to watch wrestling, but I was the only one in my family who did that.
Yeah. That's how I was too. I was the only one that watched wrestling. But sports, it varied.
Well, you are a Lakers fan, though, right?
You're a big basketball fan.
Yeah,
are there any other sports that you follow?
I follow baseball, but it's kind of like something that's more recent than something that I started when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My dad's a big baseball fan, but I really could care less about it when I was a kid. Now I'm a little more into it, but because with all the stuff online that you can find, like the stats and all that, that's what's more interesting than the actual games half the time.
Yeah.
And football, I mean, there's really nothing to. There's no football team here. Who can you root for?
Well, yeah, there's not a football team, and I'm always the same way. I know a lot of people. I would say probably of the people that I've talked to who are wrestling fans.
Yeah.
In most situations, if they do follow another sport, and It's not MMA or even boxing or even roller derby, if you want to stick it in there, which are the three things that usually wrestling fans sometimes follow. It seems to be football.
Yeah, football's but I mean, there's nothing here. Like, I think it's hard for us in Los Angeles to be into football because, I'm just saying because I'm not really into football at all, and I lived out here in Los Angeles in '74. Yeah. So, there never really was much of a team. And then, as I told before, I came from Baltimore, and as soon as the Baltimore Colts got up and moved in the middle of the night one night to Indianapolis, I was done. Yeah.
To this day, my friends will tease because I am a mature man, but they say, the Indianapolis Colts. No, they are not the Indianapolis Colts. They are the Baltimore Colts. They were never mentioned, and I break into tears usually at that point.
Wasn't there like a CFL Baltimore Colts at some point when the Colts were in the when the CFL had some American teams? Or wasn't there? There was some kind of CFL Baltimore team.
Are you thinking of the USFL maybe?
No, the CFL had American teams.
Now, are you thinking of the XFL?
Well, let's don't think of the XFL. We're talking about sports, all right? But I think that it's. I try to remember the time that I lived there was from the mid '60s until the mid '70s. So the Colts were the thing at that point. And I was never more crushed than when the Jets beat them in the Super Bowl that one year. That just killed me because they were by all that's the famous home with Joe Namath, and they were by all means and stats and everything else said they should have won, but they didn't. That was a rough year because that's the same year that the Mets beat the Orioles in the World Series. So
here we go. Yeah, the Baltimore CFL Colts, who had to change their name to the Stallions after a legal battle with the Indianapolis Colts.
What year is that, though?
That would be '94.
See, because that doesn't matter, because football died for me many years ago, bitch. I don't remember anything after that point. In the 1970s and 80s, it was over. Yeah.
Well, they were they actually were very successful, and they made it to the 1994 Grey Cup game.
Yeah, but that's the CFL. Nobody cares about the CFL.
You might as well talk arena football at that point.
We might as well talk about XFL right there.
Hey, we had in the Long Island had an arena football team, but then arena towards the end of Arena League, but then Arena League.
Yeah, the one here in LA was really successful, I think, for like a couple of years.
I always love how they every once in a while what they try to do is they try to bring the Canadian football. Some network says we're going to run the Canadian Football League.
Yeah.
And like it's going to be the next big thing, and it never makes it. Never makes it.
Now, as someone who's not a football fan, though, I thought that the Arena League definitely was a lot more exciting to watch.
There was a while where it was really good because the high scoring was so much different than what they were doing.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to bet you the thing was I think a lot of sports fans, and even it goes into wrestling too, if they are brought up on a certain style.
Yeah, it happens.
They won't, like, for example, if you put it in a wrestling context, to a lot of football fans, the NFL would be the NWA, and arena football will be what the WWF was turning into in the 80s. So there's a natural reaction, I think, in many cases, for fans to reject anything different or new, and they want to stay with the comfortable stuff.
Well, see, that even just happens like with the way the league changes, the rules and all that stuff that they change. Like with the NBA, I mean, there's a lot of people who are big basketball fans who won't watch it now because they just think it's all fixed.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because if you look at the history of baseball, which it really has been romanticized over the years, Abner Doubleday really didn't discover baseball. If you do the research into it, and you find out that at one point there were 4 or 5 different variations of baseball being played in this country. One of them.
Oh, really?
There's a great book. I can't think of what it was. There's a book out that just came out recently, right before the season, that was basically like an unofficial history of baseball. But there were versions of it where the only way the guy could, instead, if they would throw the ball at the guy, you could throw the ball at the guy when he was running the bases. And if you hit him, it was like dodgeball. He would be out. And there were some games where you didn't have to even stay within the baselines. If you hit the ball, you could run into left field and around to right field or whatever, and try to outran them that way.
Yeah, sounds like a Benny Hill chase scene.
Yeah, be like that's all you need behind that. But I mean, if you look at it, I'll find the title for you, Kirk, because it is a really interesting book.
That'd be fascinating.
But
the most interesting trend, at least from my vantage point, I work in a pretty sizable building, and a lot of people there. Most of the guys are all-around sports fans, which makes me feel like a fish out of water. But what intrigues me is I meet so many women who are MMA fans, and several of them not just watch it because the guys are hot, but they actually know the stats. They, in their heads, there's one gal who, clear as day remembers the Clay Guida Diego Sanchez fights, and actually knows her shit about what a good fighter is. Knows a lot better than I do. I must say.
Well, hang on a second. You lost me for a second because you said you meet a lot of women, and that threw me.
Well, that's because I am a bit of a woman.
You're a wrestling fan. Wrestling fans never meet women. What are you talking about?
But it's different because I am Lucky Pierre, so I get to hang with the women a lot. I fit in with the women.
That's right.
Just not as a man, you silly beast.
Yeah, he's going and Lucky Pierre is going to be wrestling a woman on Saturday night.
Uh-oh.
At Simi Valley at Yankee Doodles.
It's the Hub now.
So
it's now called the Hub.
What?
They changed the name to the Hub.
Oh, for the love of God.
You don't like that? Would you rather say I'm wrestling at Yankee Doodles on Saturday night instead of the Hub?
Yankee Doodle sounds so much hokier. That's wrestling
Yankee
for
Doodle
you.
Yankee Doodle sounds like you're going to a bar,
it sounds like a bar that may or may not be a strip club.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Exactly.
And may or may not be a male strip club.
When they first told me we were going to have a show at Yankee Doodles, I thought we were going to a strip club for real.
That's what I thought.
I brought dollars.
For the love of God, the Hub.
And Fredo was so excited to go to that show, and he was so disappointed once he got there.
There's a bunch of guys. I'm like,
I saw dollars stuffing out his pockets. And
it's a good thing there was wrestling, though.
Since it is Cinco de Mayo, should we say, is there something we should talk about lucha-wise?
Yeah, did you guys watch any lucha this weekend?
No, I was too busy.
I erased it.
I was too busy helping Charly Manson raise bail money, so I was busy.
Oh my Lord! There's a story.
I know he goes to jail just because he beats up a couple of cops.
Well, no, but remember though, he's probably going to get a longer sentence because as a professional wrestler, his fists are considered dangerous weapons.
Yeah,
that's right.
Right. Professional wrestlers are not ordinary human beings, ladies and gentlemen.
You know what his lawyer needs to do? He needs to show him a best of Charly Manson, show him how bad he is in the ring.
They need to bring in Ken Patera and Mr. Saito as expert witnesses on this.
There you go. That's the interesting thing is Ken Patera and Saito beat up a couple of cops, but Charly Manson on his own, hospitalized. Didn't he hospitalize?
The thing is, there was another guy with him. What was the other guy doing?
He was waiting for the tag.
It just seems weird. Charly Manson. How weak are these cops?
I think they arrested the other guy. I think the other guy got involved and got arrested.
Yeah, I'm guessing he must have thrown in a punch or something.
Fredo, a bit like a Santo film. It's like, stand back here 1 second. I can handle this myself.
And the other guy you just see the camera pan into the guy like making these faces at the action.
Yeah, maybe the guy looked like Jack Black's tag partner, Nacho Libre, and he just stood there and I'm not going to go in.
Yeah, he just backed off, and they arrested him, but they felt kind of sorry for them, so they let him go. I thought, Perro Aguayo Jr.'s health condition was going to be the news story of the season, and along comes Charly Manson, and wow.
Well, I still think the Perro Aguayo story is going to be a real big story. That one's by no means over yet.
Yeah, because it just seems.
This is true.
It just seems kind of weird that he's healthy all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's just something that seems kind of funny there. That's all.
Well, apparently he legit had the operation all that.
Oh, no, I believe that, but I just think that, my feeling is that oftentimes when anybody says, oh, everything's okay, don't worry about it, it usually means it's not okay.
Yeah.
What's the last news that they, as far as, what's the last word as far as Perro Jr.?
About who?
About Perro Jr.
Perro Jr. He's I guess he's going to keep doing treatment or something for a year.
Oh, so what is it? It did turn out to be cancer?
Well, he said it's not cancerous. That's what's like confusing everybody.
Yeah, because that I think what's happening is everybody gets the impression that from everything they're talking about and the way they're discussing this, that it is cancer.
Yeah, because he's saying he's taking chemotherapy, and I mean, last time I checked, you don't take chemotherapy if it was a benign tumor.
Oh, so I guess he sort of has cancer in the way that Vampiro was like, well, I've seen people dying of AIDS, and that's what, why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? Why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? AAA original booker. Why am I forgetting his name?
Conan?
No, what's his name?
Pena?
Yes, Antonio Pena.
Oh, Pena, okay.
Okay, Pena looked
that he had AIDS?
who I knew who were dying of AIDS. And it was like, I'm not going to say that he has AIDS, just that's what it looks like.
Dude, we don't want to get in trouble with Dr. Lucha again over there.
No, don't.
Hey, and once again,
Who's Dr. Lucha who wrote that?
Dr. Lucha's upset at Kurt and Dan for bringing
Dr.
up
Lucha wrote the thing about, he wrote like in the Conan, was it in Conan bio.
No, he's not really upset. We were joking about it. We were joking about it because he kept saying, because he was on the show and he kept saying, well, I was with Dan Farren and Kurt Brown, and the rumor was that he was like, no, we didn't say it. I swear. I don't want that kind of. I don't need that kind of publicity. But see, I wish if Dr. Lucha was listening, he would call in because he's a giant baseball fan, and I would like to hear him talk about being a baseball fan.
In fact, I'd love to hear from anybody who listens. I'd love to hear other people's 2 cents in over the next couple of months. I think there's at least 3. I think there's 3 of you out there who might be listening to the show. So
you want them to call in and talk about sports?
What?
You want them to call in and talk about sports?
Yeah, but we'll go off topic, so it's okay.
I think I'm still trying to figure out how you guys were talking about sports last week when Kurt's really not into sports.
Well, because you were watching a basketball game with the Lakers versus.
Yeah, no, but I would have.
Wait. Was it versus the Yankees?
Well, here's what happened, Fredo. It seemed like a really good idea at the time, and I got to tell you, anybody who heard the conversation last week, it was great. Of course, trying to recreate it this week has been a little more difficult, but but in general, no, it was. We just got off on it because we were talking about that. While you're very passionate about wrestling, at the same time, you're also very passionate about basketball, or at least the Lakers.
Yeah.
And it got the conversation going just out of the blue, and I guess the spontaneity is not there this week because it just kind of came out of nowhere.
I'm not so passionate about basketball this week, so.
That's right, and also we got waylaid by French zombie films, so that was part of the reason why.
Oh yeah, is a dude who was in the tall blonde man with one red shoe in the zombie movie?
What?
Wow, that came out for you. That came out of left field.
I'm curious. It was from France, man. It was from France.
Well, but it's like saying, well, is there ever a movie they make? Is the only movies they make in America star Samuel L. Jackson? There's more than one actor. Well, actually, I think they do, but.
And back in the '60s, every movie made starred Robert Steiger. It seemed like, good or bad or indifferent. I mean, for the love of God. So I was just figuring, I thought he was pretty funny. He'd make a great zombie also. Whatever his name was.
And you
now,
want people
better than going
And you
off
want people
topic?
to call in? This is the kind of conversation we're going to, and you want people to call in.
I want so many people to call in that we're just going to talk over each other. It'll be performance art at its finest.
Well,
now,
they should call in. You're a cult figure. Why aren't they calling? They don't care about us. We're just the boneheads sitting around here talking to you.
Like anybody
You're
wants
the cult
to listen
figure.
To me.
You're the cult figure.
All right.
Oh.
You're the rat.
I think I might have, I don't know, I'm erratic, but I don't know about being a cult figure. But,
I'm erratic.
I'm trying not to be, but it never, I don't know, it just doesn't pan out.
I think you're a cult figure. I think you've become a cult figure locally.
Now, I'd love to be a cult leader. Could you imagine having that kind of
No,
power?
I don't want you to be a cult leader. No. Cult figure's fine.
I thought you already lead the cult of Karadagian.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Or the cult of personality.
Why didn't Brian do a Cinco de Mayo show this week?
He did.
He did?
Yeah.
With who?
He did one with Dr. Lucha.
When?
I don't. It's up on the. I just looked. I was looking at the website. And
So he basically got rid of the whole week and just put it like one day? He used to do a whole week.
Ryan,
that's what he did a couple of years
Brian's
ago.
very busy being Brian Alvarez.
Ryan, are you
now,
okay?
what?
Oh, I haven't heard Ryan speak for 20 minutes. I want to make sure we
Yeah,
need to call 911.
Ryan Doyle tonight is playing the role of Alfredo Esparza.
I'm just sitting back listening. Shit.
Ryan went down to McDonald's and came back, right? Yeah.
Now, the coolest thing, Turner Classic Movies, they are celebrating Cinco de Mayo all week long, but it
he
winds
just put it up
on
right now.
But they wind up Friday.
No, I'm saying
They are
the Cinco
playing
de Mayo show just came up right now. I just noticed it.
Oh, see, I'm talking Turner Classic Movies here.
Do you know what the secret of a successful show is? Timing. Go ahead.
Yeah, something I totally lack.
Well, I just want to throw that in before I forget,
Okay, so everybody, you can go to Wrestling Observer to see the Cinco de Mayo Lucha thing, but Turner Classic Movie. Oh, we're gonna have to edit this motherfucker. Turner Classic Movie is showing one of the best works of Mexican cinema on Friday night. Now, this is only partially off-topic Lucha Libre style. Who is the greatest film director of all time in Mexico?
Speedy Gonzalez.
Mil Muscat.
The guy who directed the Santo movies.
Rene Cardona.
Yes.
Rene Cardona.
You're Rene Cardona. Yes, he is the greatest director of all time, possibly internationally. And Friday at 11 p.m. on Turner Classic Movies, they're going to show his crowning glory, which I regret to say is not a Santo flick, but it is a 1959 movie, Santa Claus.
Oh,
they're showing that in May?
Is this the same movie we talked about last time?
They're showing that in May?
I've never seen it, so I have to make sure to watch that. When is it on?
We've talked about that movie a bunch of times.
Yes, it's one of the best movies ever made, and that's how they're celebrating the Mexican Heritage Week thing.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You want to see moments of there's that entire sequence at the beginning where the children of the world sing to Santa Claus, and you want to see lapses of good judgment. There you go. Watch that.
Total poor taste in its greatest. It's awesome. Santa lives in outer space, and he has a kid named Pedro who wears a sombrero, who looks through a telescope at all the kids to see if they're being good, and he has a wizard who lives with him, and mechanical reindeer.
Wow.
Are they showing the Rene Cardona film about the soccer team that ate each other when they crashed in the Alps or the Andes
I've never
or whatever?
seen that. I heard that was so cool. 1976, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a big exploitation film.
Wait, so when is this going to be on Turner Classic Movies?
11 p.m. Friday night.
Okay. That's Turner
And if you want a little German fare.
Yeah, wait a second.
Not really German, but faux German. On Friday at 2 in the afternoon, they are showing the 1932 film Flesh, starring Wallace Beery, who we mentioned earlier, where he plays a German wrestler who comes to the United States, and is this sweet gentleman who is shocked to find that the wrestling here is crooked.
Wait, what?
I'm serious. I'm not messing with you.
He wins the ladder match. He wins the ladder match and becomes the champion, but he only holds it for 2 days. That's the problem.
No, this is probably the best week Turner Classic Movies has ever presented.
And what's this one called?
It's called Flesh.
And it's going to be on.
Not to be confused with the classic Andy Warhol version with Joe D'Alessandro made in the late '60s.
And it's going to be on.
Which is also a great film. I'm sorry?
And Flesh is going to be on when?
It's going to be on Friday at 2:00.
Oh, so it'll be on right after Santa Claus. or something like that.
Before Santa Claus. Santa Claus is on at 11 p.m.
Hey, Kurt, if you ever updated your website...
It's on at, 2 a.m. or 2 p.m.?
2 p.m.
There can't be anybody listening right now.
I was going to say, the 3 people that were logged in logged off long ago already.
Not only did they log off, they killed themselves probably after that.
Like I said, I could be a cult leader if I have people knocking themselves off.
You know, if you actually updated your website, you could put that on the website.
That's true. I haven't
Kurt
updated
the website? Wow.
He fixed it at least.
I
have to get things in order one of these days.
Actually, wait, what time are you going on? Because I think I'm looking at my guide, and I think it had, at least local time, it had 11 for Santa Claus, but it has 5 o'clock local for Flesh. So you might be looking at different listings. It might be on 8 o'clock your time for Santa Claus. Let me look.
Okay, yeah.
So Dan, what'd you have for dinner, Dan?
Oh no, Santa Claus is on.
This show's starting to sound like Facebook posts.
Santa Claus is on the 11.
Hey, there's the idea. It'll be just a stream of consciousness show every week.
I don't want to make anyone miss it. No, it is on at 2 a.m. Eastern, 11 Pacific.
Both movies
Santa.
are. Yeah, you go ahead.
So yeah, 5 Eastern Pacific and 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific.
These are 2 of the most important films ever produced.
You know, if Bin Laden was still alive and he heard this show, he would open the doors and say, "Just shoot me. Get me out of this right now. Shoot me now."
All I want to know is Omar Slam Duncan part of the show this Saturday night? That's all I want.
Yes, he is. He is.
Okay.
Is he wrestling?
That's actually going to be a very good show. I'll throw a quick cheap plug in since we're such a train wreck tonight. But basically, 7 o'clock at the Hub, a.k.a. Yankee Doodle. You can call wherever you want to as long as you show up. We have Ryan Taylor defending the world title against Akira Tozawa. We have Lucky Pierre in an intergender match against Nikki the New York Knockout.
So if any of you out there listening are totally annoyed by me, you'll see me get my butt kicked every which way Saturday night. Come one, come all. And what are some of the quality stuff on the show, Dan?
I think Taylor and Tozawa are the quality.
That's going to be bitching.
Do you know who Omar Slam Duncan is taking on?
Oh, yes, I do. He's taking on one half of the A-list.
All right.
Which one?
Roger, is it Ruiz? I'm sorry. Away from my,
Not the other.
Excuse me. And I know that Fern Owens will be on the show, and
Whiskey Fist?
Whiskey Fist is on the show.
Everybody's favorite, Whiskey Fist.
Whiskey Fist is going up against Pelkid, yes.
What about the big Samoan guy?
No, he. I'll tell you that one off air. But he's a very nice guy. It has nothing to do with him. It's other stuff. It's other politics and stuff. That has nothing to do with him.
Oh, it probably has to do with EWF. I know that.
I wish
silence.
I wish Kayfabe was back right now.
That was a long
silence in the background. It seems oddly fitting.
Somebody's playing music.
Good Lord, my phone is
the most haphazard
dance
ever.
Dance music.
Ringtone. That was my cell phone going off. That's what it was.
Ringtone.
You know, the sad thing is my cell phone going off is the most interesting thing we've talked about tonight.
Speaking of wrestling movies, Body Slam is on Netflix now.
Yes, it is. And that's one reason to cancel your Netflix.
Oh, come on. How can you not like Body Slam? Captain Lou Albano is the only wrestler in the movie, well, the main characters, who plays himself, but he still doesn't play himself, because for some reason he's Captain Lou Morano. That's my favorite thing. Literally, okay, so, Roddy Piper's Quick Rick, Tonga Kid's Tonga Tom, which I guess you can argue is close enough, but still.
Right.
Captain Lou Albano.
Ric Flair is Ric Flair.
Well, no, but he's not one of the main characters.
No, and so does Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah, and Chicano Casey.
That's right.
Yes, and it's my favorite movie ever. My favorite movie ever to star Tijo Khan, though.
That was the best work he ever did, and had nothing to do with wrestling.
I know.
That was in a movie, so.
And but you got Billy Barty as Billy Barty playing I think he plays a manager too, and the number one talk show on television is Ring Talk, a wrestling talk show hosted by Charles Nelson Riley.
Oh, that's worth it alone.
Oh yeah,
that guy ruled.
Yeah, wait, Kurt, I'm sure you've seen Body Slam, right?
I have not.
Oh, come on. How have you never seen Body
Slam? I saw that like when I was a kid, man.
It used to be on TV all the time. I mean, it was
the only scene I ever saw was the scene where I think it's Piper and Tonga are wrestling these two hillbillies, and the skinny hillbilly was a kid who went to my high school. Now, okay, here's a question for everybody.
Blackballed.
What's that?
That's when they get blackballed from the wrestling business by Captain Lou Morano, and they go around the country with Benedict's rock band Kick, and they form a rock and wrestling connection.
This should be the TNA storyline.
Yes, they get on the cover of Rolling Stone, and they
why can't somebody one day make a really good professional wrestling film? Seriously.
What?
Hey, you know what? You're all forgetting Paradise Alley. That was my all-time favorite wrestling type.
Yeah, that's a wrestling adjacent film more so than it is a wrestling film.
Oh, you mean like actually?
Now,
how to be about
my personal favorite is always La Ultima Lucha, which
I know.
Even if you don't speak Spanish, you got to. I know it's like the fifth time I brought it up.
Dude, Dad sounds like I do when.
Then I'm gonna turn it over to you, Cats, and.
Oh no, it's okay. Go ahead and mention
yes,
it.
No. I'm gonna make each of you say 5 times over the next couple of months what your favorite wrestling film was. No, here's a more interesting question.
Well, what's your favorite English language wrestling movie?
Oh, English language.
Girls?
Samson versus the vampire women.
No, how about what was it? Night? What's the?
In the City.
Yeah,
Mike Mazurki.
That's an amazing
movie.
film. That's a great film.
Yeah, I would say with movies with wrestling as a subplot, that's probably one of the best ever.
Yes.
I think
Kurt, you can talk about anything you want to, Kurt, because you are the draw on this show. It's not us. Seriously, people call it. It's like Howard Beale and Network. They want to hear you.
Yeah,
and that is true because
they do. You know why? Because every time I read a review, or every once in a while, somebody will write something about this show. They never mention anybody but you.
Yeah.
And that's okay because I mean you are this is your show. You're we're kind of like you're kind of like Howard Stern and we're everybody else around you revolving.
That's a very surreal sensation.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that Fredo is Fred. Think about it.
That's why I don't talk that much.
Wouldn't it be funny if actually Kurt Brown didn't exist? That actually Vandal Drummond or Lucky Pierre was the main character, was the main guy, and Kurt Brown was just a spin-off of that character?
I like where you're going with this, Dan. Tell us more.
It's very interesting.
I've always thought
I'm here to hear Kurt Brown.
I've always thought of this show as more as Kurt is sort of like Barbara Walters and we're the rest of you, you know?
Yeah, all talking at one time.
Can you hear me?
Who is that?
I am here to listen to Kurt Brown's dulcet tones.
Okay, I'll see you next week. No.
That doesn't sound like Gene LaBelle either.
I was going to say,
maybe it's Mike LaBelle.
Who do we have here?
This is northern Middle Tennessee.
Ah, you have returned.
Yes, I was listening and to your caterwauling. I just want to call you. Even a show as shitty as this one, I still enjoy it.
Oh Lord! See, Fredo, I ruined the show twice in a week. I ruined it last Thursday, and I ruined it this Thursday.
What happened last week? I went to download it, and there was nothing there. What kind of a goddamn piece is that?
Thank you.
It's called Vandal is computer incompetent, illiterate, totally.
It was Vandal. Vandal takes a turn controlling the podcast, and
he didn't see where it says record.
Yeah.
Because Fredo couldn't do the show because he is watching the Lakers versus the West Memphis Grizzlies in the national playoffs of the
You know
sport.
there is a Memphis Grizzlies team, right?
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, but they're not playing that. But there is a team called the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh. So how many dribbles do you have to get a point in the basketball?
Depends how old you
The
are.
basketball.
Yeah.
And apparently Kurt couldn't figure out click the button.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what button to push.
Yeah.
In fact, we are very shortly coming out. There's going to be another Lucha World T-shirt coming out very soon, but I think we already have the third one coming soon, Fredo. It's just going to say simply, push the purple button. Damn it. There was a purple button on the screen I didn't know to push, Trent, and therefore we had a fascinating conference call, but it is lost in oblivion.
And it cannot be recreated, can it, as this show has proven, right?
No.
So,
That's right. That's what happened with this show. We tried to recreate it.
Yes, and then
Please save us. Please save us. Say something. Save us this evening.
I figured just the fact you guys went 2 weeks in a row was a big problem, you know.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
we need to lay down and hold a cold compress to our heads before we come back. And 2 weeks in a row is too much.
Well, I just want to mention I've always been a big sports fan, especially baseball and football. Grew up in Green Bay, but people in wrestling that don't like sports has always been interesting to me because my experience with them is they're like really kind of like Kurt, you know, kind of wacky sci-fi kind of people.
Yeah, that's true.
They sort of bring that aspect into it, but I've always been curious about people that love pro wrestling and don't like sports. I've always found that to be a sort of a strange marriage of sorts.
Do you know, I sometimes wonder if one of the reasons why people who are into sports don't like wrestling is because maybe they feel embarrassed by watching something that isn't considered a sport, at least in the old days. More so,
right.
You know, I know when I was growing up, you know, there were people you would tell that you watched wrestling, and there were people you wouldn't tell because they would just make fun of you.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, and even today it still has to be a bit of a closet hobby because in the wrong circles you mentioned, you know, this is your hobby. You know that's fake, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so true. And you're
What I always love is this about in the late 70s I was working on a TV show, and I got Fred Blassie booked for the show, and he came in, and you know, for all these guys who claimed they didn't watch wrestling or they weren't into wrestling, they were all there that day. They all took pictures with him. They all got autographed pictures with him. And it always happens, because what will happen is somebody will say, "Oh, you like wrestling? Really?" And then when nobody's around, they'll turn to you and say, "So do you remember like in 1993 when Stone Cold Steve Austin came out?" And they'll prove to you that they actually watch it. They just don't tell anybody.
Yeah. My favorite story is something like that. It was in the Observer like a year or two ago, maybe longer, that Dave told this story that he was in college and there was this one class where or between classes they'd watch wrestling tapes, and it was like it was something like a Harley race in Georgia or something like that, or maybe it was someone turned heel in Georgia. It was something anyway, and the teacher would talk about, "Oh, that's fake. Don't you know that's fake? How can you watch that stuff?" And then whoever was the heel attacks the referee, Scrappy McGowan, and the teacher says, "Wait, why is he attacking Scrappy?" Because clearly a non-wrestling fan would know who Scrappy McGowan was.
Exactly. I love it.
Well, I can tell you a true story that I've actually never told anyone. A couple of years ago, I'm a single man and I don't go on a lot of dates, but occasionally I do. And I actually got a girl naked into my bedroom, which that alone is unprecedented, you know. And next to my bed, there's boxes full of old wrestling magazines. Right on top happened to be a old picture of like a 1940s or 50s masked wrestler. And she looked at it, and she looked at me, she goes, "This isn't some strange S&M type thing, is it?" That's
awesome.
She goes goes into the bathroom, takes her cell phone with her. It's like, Mom, come and get me right now. This guy's crazy. I know he is.
She doesn't get dressed. She just goes out the bathroom window.
Well, I always joked about it, and Kurt knows this, but when I first started dating my wife, I never told her. In fact, she never found out that I was a wrestling fan until after we were married.
After you were married? No way.
Yeah, no, I never told Mary Lou, and then I did was, because actually there was no wrestling out here at that time, so there was nothing to go to or whatever, and really there weren't any independents because, actually I think about it, the first independent in Southern California that could promote without having a license was Hollywood Heavyweight Wrestling.
Yeah.
But there were what I did was I took Mary Lou to the sports arena in the early '80s when the WWE first came out here, when Backlund had just lost the belt and Hogan had won, and I said to her, I said, I'm going to take you in. I said, we're going to watch the show. If for any reason you get nervous or you don't like it or something bothers you or makes you feel, just let me know and we'll leave. But luckily, she was able to get into the characters and got a big kick out of it. And actually, it's funny, Mary Lou loves Lucha Libre. She likes Japanese wrestling. And she sometimes will watch mixed martial arts. But the only time she'll watch the WWE stuff is if it's really goofy stuff. Like
Hornswoggle.
Like Hornswoggle or the Bushwhackers, or also she thinks Rock and Cena are very cute, so she'll watch that, of course. But that's a chance you take, and luckily it worked out for me because we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary this past week. So
Congratulations!
I was lucky in that capacity, but I know what you're saying in that thing. It's one of those things. It takes a special person you want to reveal it to because you really are putting yourself out there.
Well, it's fascinating you say that because one of my actual girlfriends several years ago was not a wrestling fan, but I was watching tapes, and I'll give her credit. She was the T-word. She tolerated it, no problem. Yeah. but for some reason, I had some old Lucha Libre tapes I had traded for. For some reason, she thought that was just the most fantastic stuff ever. She loved it. It was just so strange. And but she hated any type of a female valet. Oh, what a bitch. She's a bitch. She's a bitch. That's awesome. You don't like that, do you? Well, yeah, okay. No, I don't like that, baby. I just like you.
Whatever you say, honey.
Hey, speaking of valets, didn't we talk about Dark Journey last week?
What about?
She's dead, right, Bex?
No, we didn't have it on tape, and now you said it.
No, there was a number of years ago, I think about 8-9 years ago, there was a rumor going around she was dead, and a friend of ours ran into her at a memorabilia convention and confirmed she's not dead.
She lives in Los Angeles, though.
This was in Los Angeles. Yeah, you're gonna drive this one into the ground, aren't you?
Do you remember Medaja? Or was it Medaja? Who was Scott Steiner's? Who was Scott Steiner's? Do you know at one point, I don't know what she's doing now, but a friend of mine who was a wrestling fan went up to Universal City to have dinner like in a Black Angus there, and she was working as a waitress. Wow. This was after WCW shut down.
I don't mean this in an insensitive way, but I've always wondered: was Dark Journey, was she black or white?
She's definitely black.
That's a good question, actually.
She was black. I'm not sure about that.
No, I've seen people claim. Oh, there was someone claimed on a message board that there was a video of her naked, and that you could tell by the color of her areola that she was not black, and whatever wrestler it was said into the camera. Now that's what I call a dark journey.
She's the same race as Mark Merrill. I just figured it out.
Okay, Okay, now officially after that story, I'm off the hook for spilling the beans she's in L.A., all right? Because I ain't talking I'm not talking about areolas or anything. I was just saying where she was. That's all I'm doing.
She doesn't exactly have an uncommon name, though. I mean, it's not like just by looking up her real name.
You call 411. Last name, Journey. First name, Stark.
I actually heard Bill Watts' interview maybe a year or two ago with that Gary Cabetta guy, where Watts freely admitted that he tried very hard to have an affair with Dark Journey, and she rebuked his advances.
Wow.
Yeah, well, one of the things we were saying on the show last week was when our friend Eric Caden ran into her, she was looking through all his memorabilia, seeing if there's any photos of her, and he recognized who she was, and he is saying, hey, I run into a lot of the the old timers at the conventions. Is there anybody you want to get in touch with? And apparently her answer was no, thank you.
Well, as
there was a great publicity photo, and I know Eric had about 800 of them, and we've all seen it, where she was out in some sort of field or whatever with the missing link.
Oh, I know the photo you're talking about.
She was wearing like a leopard print bikini or something, and they were just happened to be hanging out in the field, which was a weird picture, but yeah.
Yeah, she was stunning in that photo, I thought. Actually, she's stunning in general.
Wasn't there some story where she went to the Carolinas where Baby Doll was, and she lasted like a day? And was
they brought her in.
Journey. Yeah, they brought her in.
They brought her in for the Horsemen at one point. She was supposed to be the executive secretary.
Yeah, she was there for like just a couple months or so.
I just think that's one thing they didn't need. The Horsemen never needed, a female valet in any kind of way, and I think she probably was just kind of. I think also at that point she just kind of looked like she was. Oftentimes she looked like she was really phoning it in. She really had it with the wrestling business. You get that dead behind the eyes kind of look, and she would just kind of stand there in the back. I mean, everybody else pushed to the front. She was behind, either the tallest guy, whether it was Luger or Wyndham or JJ, and just standing there. And you're not going to get any interview time, not with those guys up. You're not. And I think also Missy Hyatt used to say that also the problem with working with Dark Journey was, in those catfight spots they would do, Dark Journey was real stiff.
Really?
Yeah, because, she had no training. From what I heard, she was an exotic dancer that Dick Slater picked up.
Yeah. Yep. In fact, it's a famous story of that Dick Slater cleaning Sting's clock when he started dating Dark Journey.
And it's too bad because it always looked like, she thought, well, maybe this is a nice, quick way to make some money or to get someplace. And it was one of those situations where it didn't turn out that way. She was a beautiful woman. I'm sure she probably still is.
I agree.
She was beautiful. And I always felt that, under the right circumstances, they really, somebody could have really had a good run, using her as a character.
And for somebody who just kind of fell into the business, she was pretty decent on the mic.
Yeah, she was when they gave her a chance to do it.
Yeah.
And I liked the Slater Butch Reed feud, because I thought they had like really good matches with each other, and I mean, even though it's not something that we like to see now, but for some reason I like the twist on the racial angle that they put in there, because it's like, okay, Watts knows that he's playing to a black audience, so what he's going to do is he's going to have a black female valet with a white heel talking about, to play that up instead of the opposite, where it was always promoters were like, if we put a black heel with a white woman, it's going to mean lots of heat and we're going to draw money. And it never did.
Now, who is this black valet you're speaking of?
What?
Who is this black valet you're speaking of?
Oh, Butch Reed. No, it was Butch. She was with Slater against Butch Reed, and they did kind of like a reverse. They were overt about it.
Well, who says Dark Journey? Who says Dark Journey was black? there's your swerve right there.
Well, there's a video. No, there's a video running around evidently that has. No, I think it is for that. I think that was a kind of it was a matter of timing, because I think for where they were at that point, that I hope so. Things had changed enough that maybe it wasn't as scandalous as it might have been 5 or 6 years earlier. And also, I think they never really gave the time to try to work that, because if I'm correct, wasn't that around the time that Watts was doing the big Russia-USA angle again?
It was a few months before that, but the promos I remember seeing were pretty overt about that she, with, I think it was, I'm trying to remember if it was later and Bernie cut his promos about it, or Reed did, talking about, sort of denigrating the idea of her shacking up with a white guy. But there's something about just the doing the opposite of it, that of what most promoters would do, because of the awareness of who their audience was, that I always found kind of interesting.
Well, I think, wasn't there also a rumor or a story at one point that down in Smoky Mountain, when Cornette had the gangsters down there, that he wanted to make Sonny their manager at one point?
Oh,
yes, I remember that.
No, I thought it was that she was going to manage Tony Atlas, and then he didn't come in.
The legend story that I always heard was that he wanted her to, when she was first starting out, to manage the gangsters, and supposedly she said to him, "I'm not even 21 yet. I'd like to live that long."
That's what I heard too.
Wow.
Oh, Lord.
Wow.
Well, on that note, I think it is time to wrap this show up, and for all of you folks out there who are masochistic enough to hang the full, how long's it been? It's been about an hour and 35 minutes, and when I say the masochistic ones, I'm talking about the ones who are masochistic to listen to me talk about old-time wrestlers, old-time wrestlers. And if you join us in 2 weeks, we will talk about more old-time
let's take another hour and a half and talk about some old wrestlers, just to really irritate people. We haven't done it enough this evening.
That sounds wonderful.
There's a lot of podcasts that talk about the newer wrestlers anyway. So
that's right.
This is true.
It's like, how many times can you talk about Raw every single week? It's not like it's that good anyway.
Once is more than enough.
One of the reasons I like talking about the old school LA is it seems like there are several podcasts that wax nostalgic on the Carolinas, the Southern Territories, but there's not a lot that look back at other regions like Pacific Northwest, LA, San Francisco.
Well, do you know what I think the sad thing about it is, Kurt, is that I think that despite all the publicity they got, the Southern California territory out here was always looked at by the NWA as the redheaded stepson.
Yes,
I mean, either there were all kinds of weird stuff going on, or they got Frankenstein's monster, or they got a bunch of guys wearing masks jumping around out there. And I think that outside of you is the kind of thing where if you lived in this area and you saw it, or if you read like the After magazines and saw what was going on about all of it, that there's a good chance you could get interested. But I just think, and also because it flamed out by, was it 80, 81? Is that about right?
Yeah,
79, whatever it was?
At the end of 1982. End of 82 is when it folded.
And it was a long, painful death. It was a long, painful death.
Oh, watching it dwindle was, in hindsight, it's amusing, but at the time, I was like, oh my God, let's get some good wrestling going here. It had little
it has little nuggets once in a while, but
yeah. And I think 79 Coach came in. There was the Gibsons briefly. There was some good stuff.
I think one of the things, and I don't know if we touched about it in now the infamous Lost show or if it was another show, but I think that there was a period where, there was a period in the 60s and the 50s when they were doing the TV and Gorgeous George was out here. And then into the early 70s, there was that classic Tolis Blassie run. But pretty much, there were a lot of great things that happened outside of that. But that, it was not a territory that had a long run of memorable stuff.
No, it did not.
There were holes. There were pockets there. And that's why I think that a lot of that a lot of fans, and also as somebody once said to me, I think it might have even been Johnny Legend, but the problem when you're in some place like Los Angeles is, you have all this competition, and it's, you got baseball, you have football, you have basketball, you have movies, you have amusement parks, you have concerts, you have all these things going on out here. So it really, the people who went to the Olympic and the other places were the hardcore of the hardcore.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, I'll tell you, you know, for me, being from Green Bay, when I was a kid, I always had a strange fascination with California wrestling from the F magazines. There was just something about it that was, I don't know, it was just something about it.
There was something exotic about it. Yeah, there was something exotic.
And to be honest with you, was the photographer, was it Theo Arrett? Was that it?
Theo Arrett, yes.
There was something about it. I could tell a photo from the Olympic even before I looked at the wrestlers. It had a look that no other building had. I mean, I could just look at a photo and the way he took a picture, oh, that's the Olympic. It was
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct.
And they also had the great Richmond 95171 sign that was seemed to be in every picture framed in the background.
That's the thing I really miss. That, you know, now it's really just the garden and that's about it.
Yeah.
But you used to be able to tell what every arena looked like.
Yeah. Oh, you could.
Yes.
And even with the WWE well into the 70s and 80s, you know, if it had the high ramp, then you knew it was Toronto. If it had the chicken wire around it, it was Philadelphia. You know, you could tell.
If you had the wood, you know, the wood floor exposed, it was Boston.
It was Boston, yeah. And even now, it's weird. Whenever they go to the Garden now, it's so, I mean, I remember, you know, to me, it was always like the Garden looked gigantic on TV.
Yeah.
And now, you know, with all the pyro and the ramps and all that other stuff, it doesn't even, it looks like just a regular, that's a good point.
It just looks like
they don't set up the ramp a lot of the time at the Garden, though.
Yeah, I mean, but I think this is a good point is that if you watch a Raw or SmackDown, the whole idea each week is this is Raw and SmackDown. It's not the personality of the arena.
Right.
So I've heard from some of the David Lagana broadcasts that the only way that those guys even recognize a place is that because they were always backstage, is that they see the back in the dressing room area. Then they recognize what arena they're in, but only then.
The Garden was one that they showed the dressing room a lot at, too.
You had the long hallway.
Yeah, and they showed that a lot on the...
They always showed that. There was always somebody standing there who wasn't supposed to.
Where is Cal Rudman? Where is he?
Yeah, Cal Rudman or Vince was there with his jacket off, or his father was there, or Mr. Fuji was standing there looking like I should not be here. You know, that kind of.
But no, and you're right. L.A. was, you know, it was had little blossoms of glory here and there. It was patchy. It was kitschy. You're right. The redheaded stepchild. And I know there's not going to be a ton of people fascinated with the history, but it would be fun to just get some of it down orally in the written word, just so it.
I wholeheartedly agree, because this is one of those things. Is when this is gone, it's gone. I mean, no one's going to ever remember that there even was wrestling in L.A. outside of a handful of people. So, I mean, I do think it is important to do it, and we do joke about it. But, no, I think it's important to just throw that out there because, I mean, I think, you know, the Monster has become, you know, I think we've done all that we possibly can to make the Monster a star. I mean, a bigger star than he actually is. And we're still going to find a way to get him on this show. I still think we need to get the Monster on the show.
That'd be awesome.
Yes, definitely.
And then he won't talk. All he does for 2 hours is go, like that.
A longer version of Frankenstein wastes a minute of our time from Conan O'Brien,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'd be the whole thing where the whole show we'd ask him questions. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of Michael Bell? I never liked the guy. Oh.
Sucky payoff.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I hate to wind the show up because I'm having a blast. I know the people out there listening probably do not agree, do not concur, but...
no, I think they do. I think they do.
The ones listening right now are fine. It's the ones that are downloading it are going to have...
That's right.
They're going, when will this show end? It goes on and on. And then they start to wrap it up, and then they start up again. And it's like root canal.
The good thing is you could actually skip through the stuff you don't want to listen to.
That's true.
If you
That's
don't want
the
to
beauty
listen
of
to
the computer
zombies,
age.
If you don't want to listen to zombies, go to the wrestling portion.
That's right.
Or go to the sports.
We should put time codes on it. We really should.
Yeah, we should have little
I like that idea.
Yeah, you know, if you want French zombie film talk, go to 4 minutes. If you want,
that's right. If you want Jackie Cooper's Life and Times,
If you want to
I think that's what people like about the show, that you guys talk about, that we talk about all this other weird stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like
fun.
It's
so fun to see where it's going to take us. That's one of the things I enjoy about us. Oh, we also have to remember the feature for this episode. If you want to hear the part of the show where people make fun of Vandal for screwing up last week's episode, there's the 5-minute mark, the 7-minute mark, 9-minute mark.
22 minutes.
They give him a break for 10 minutes.
If you want to hear the word areola.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like the Vince Russo ADD podcast or something. I don't know.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you want to hear the word areola and dark journey in the same sentence,
we can't even sit through an episode of TNA. I mean,
well, I got to tell you, even if we sat here and said nothing for 2 hours, we still would say more than TNA would.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Did you read Kurt said he was going to watch TNA this week?
Who did?
Kurt said he was going to watch.
He's not going to watch TNA this week.
Yeah,
he's going to watch a film with TNA in it, but he's not going to watch TNA.
Yeah, that's right. Now, Fredo, but you got to remember, you and somebody else on Facebook talked me out of it. I'll let all you really had to say was don't watch it, and I said, oh, okay.
Put the remote control down. Step away from the remote control.
Fredo was instead suggesting Extreme Couponing, which is an awesome show. Much more fascinating than TNA. And there's probably more wrestling in an episode of Extreme Couponing than wrestling in TNA.
Well, you can always go to the old ESPN Classics. You usually always find a tractor pull or a big wheel show there or something. Every time I turn on ESPN Classic, there's always like monster trucks.
There's 8
Actually, on there right now is David Sammartino versus Mick Foley from Herb Abrams' UWF.
Oh my God. They're showing the UWF again?
They are.
That thing,
man.
Yeah.
They need to drive a stake through the heart of that thing. That thing will not die either. It's like Mickey Rooney. It just goes on forever.
Yes. Well,
I mean, you talk about saving wrestling history. That's one part of wrestling history we don't need to save, the UWF.
In fact, it's interesting to bring that up, Dan, because just as I said, there's never been a photo of George Burns to prove he's really dead. There has not been any recent pictures of Mickey Rooney to prove he's still alive.
Well, you know what? If you go through some of those tabloids from Mexico, if he is dead, there'll be a picture of him there.
Yeah.
Wait. No, you hit upon something better. He's the new K Monito.
What?
He's K Monito.
Oh, okay. You meant literally.
Mickey Rooney.
Oh, you meant literally. I thought you meant in some figurative sense, and I was trying to figure out the connection. But okay, you meant literally.
He's probably playing the role. George Burns is too tall to play K Monito. And he can't bump as well as he did when he was 98.
Take us out, Kurt. Take us out.
Okay, time to take out the trash. The trash, namely Vandal Drummond, Vandal the Love Handle, who is about to watch the movie Las Lobas del Ring, starring Lorena Velasquez, Cavernario Galindo, Chabela Romero, and Ray Mendoza. Just got it. I can hardly wait to see it.
Don't miss the Horde. The Horde. Everybody watch the Horde.
Yes, the French film The Horde, the great zombie film starring the tall blonde man with one red shoe. And I want to thank all you cats for calling in. Thank you, Trent, from Memphis again. Calling in we hope to hear from you again.
I'm not from Memphis. I'm in Louisville. There, Hep Cat.
Yeah, he's in northern Middle Tennessee. Come on.
Well, I'm actually in Louisville, but
so wait. So you're not on the Grizzlies?
I'm not on the Grizzlies. No.
I thought you're the one who beat the Lakers last night.
See, the only city Kurt knows in the South is Memphis, so that's where everybody's from.
Well,
I thought everybody's from Memphis.
I live in North Memphis. Okay, go ahead.
Very North Memphis, yeah.
Oh, okay. My truest stereotypical apology for stereotyping southern towns.
Is this some weird? Is this some weird S&M thing? Oh, never mind.
That everybody listening to the show is asking the same question.
In this case, you're right.
No, thank you. But seriously, thank you again for calling. We'd love to hear from you again. And thank you as always, Dan Farren. Thank you as always, Bixie. Thank you as always, Ryan. And Alfredo Esparza, thank you for saving the show.
This one we save. Great.
We save this one for posterity, if not for just vile humor.
It'll be on iTunes in a couple of hours too. So.
Oh, really? Now you can get them on iTunes again?
Oh, you can get both shows on iTunes.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yep.
that's good to know.
And they're archived on archive.org also.
Wow.
So
Totally.
Everywhere. You'll be able to.
So
listen
remember.
To
Oh, I'm sorry, Fredo. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
Dan, you can listen to this forever and ever.
Come play with us, Donnie.
It already
Come
feels like
play
I
with
have.
And Dan,
Forever?
this Saturday we'll be talking about Dr. Jerry Graham again too.
That's okay.
That's right. In the dressing room of, it kills me to say this. It hurts so much to say it. The Hub in Simi Valley. The Hub, I swear. Yankee Doodle, ladies and gentlemen, Simi Valley. Come one, come all, and watch Lucky Pierre get his ass kicked from pillar to post, loopy as hell, and loving every minute of it. So in 2 weeks, join us again. And until next time, if you're walking down a street in Southern California and you see a bright light streaking across the sky, it is not a shooting star. It is a heavenly handful of...
I don't know. What?
One cells powder.
Rockin'. Wow!
Yeah.
See you cats in 2 weeks.
Wow.